it's Rachel. Welcome back to Smile English Stories, where you can listen to English spoken in lots of different contexts. Today, we are going to be cooking. We are going to be making cheesecake. American cheesecake. People say that American cheesecake came from New York in the east of America in the 1870s. But cheesecake is older than New York, and not just a little older, a lot older, much older than New York. Cheesecake existed in the times of the ancient Greeks. You know, the ancient Greeks were the people who lived in Greece between the 8th century BC and the year 146 BC. BC means before Christ. If you go to Greece one day, you might decide to climb Mount Olympus, which is the highest, the tallest mountain in Greece. It's 2,918 meters tall. But you will take 2 days to climb to the top and back down again. The ancient Greeks thought that 12 gods and goddesses lived on the top of Mount Olympus. There was Zeus, the god of thunder and lightning. There was Poseidon, the god of the sea and storms and horses. And there was Apollo. He was the god of archery and music and dance. And then there was Demeter. She was the goddess of harvest. And of course there was Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And then there was Athena. Athena was the goddess of wisdom. She must have been very intelligent, very smart, very clever, just like Hedgie. And she was the goddess who protected Athens, the capital city of Greece. The ancient Greeks were very good with their hands. And the people who lived in Athens wanted to build a special house. They wanted to build a special house to worship the gods and goddesses, especially Athena, who protected them. They looked up and they saw a hill, a rocky hill. So they decided to build a little city, a town, on the hill. And around the town, they built a wall. A town with a wall around is called a citadel. And the people from Athens called their town the Acropolis. And in the Acropolis, they built the special house to worship the gods and goddesses. A temple. It was a beautiful temple with lots of big columns, and they called it the Parthenon. and they dedicated the Parthenon to Athena. Because the ancient Greeks were good with their hands, they made things. They used clay to make urns, and they painted the urns with pictures of gods and goddesses, or with scenes from everyday life. And the ancient Greeks loved to sit down and listen to stories. They probably didn't have books, but they might have had scrolls to read from. There was a very famous storyteller in ancient Greece. His name was Aesop, and he wrote more than 700 stories called fables, which are stories with a little message. You might have heard of, you might know the fox and the grapes, or the wolf and the crane, or the fox and the crow. And the ancient Greeks loved playing games. They loved playing with yo-yos, which probably came from China. And in 776 BC, the ancient Greeks started the Olympic Games. And it's not impossible that they gave cheesecake to the Olympic athletes to give them more energy before they started a competition. But I don't think they do that at the Olympic Games today. Imagine! Good morning, Mr. Bolt. Would you like some cheesecake? But what is cheesecake? Cheesecake is made from a biscuit base and a creamy topping. But there are two types of cheesecake. Cheesecake you need to cook in the oven, and cheesecake you don't need to cook in the oven. You could add different flavors to the cream, like vanilla, spices, lemon, chocolate, or pumpkin. Or you could put a topping on the cheesecake, like fruit or fruit coulis, fruit sauce, or nuts or cream. Today I am going to show you the basic recipe for American cheesecake. It's my daughter's friend's recipe, and then you can add your own flavors and your own toppings. I am washing and drying my hands so we can get started. To make the cheesecake base, we need 80 grams of butter and 250 grams of biscuits. Today I am using speculoos. You need rich butter biscuits, crunchy biscuits, not dry biscuits. In England, we would use digestive biscuits or ginger biscuits, but you could try cookies or Oreos. And we are going to need a baking tin. A baking tin with a base we can put in and take out. So if I take my baking parchment out my drawer, we can prepare the baking tin. So put the baking parchment on the table and draw round the base with a pencil. Now we can cut the paper with some scissors. And now we need to grease and line the baking tin. La 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 la. Okay, so now if we put the baking parchment back in the box and back in the drawer, we can prepare the biscuits. So we need to make biscuit crumbs. Either we can use a bowl and a rolling pin, or we can use a bag with a rolling pin. So I have just weighed my 250 grams of biscuits, and now, because I am feeling a little stressed, I am going to bash my biscuits, and then I will feel a little less stressed.
Help me!
Oh, these biscuits are really hard.
Several souls! Kid exterminated.
That's finished. So now I am feeling really relaxed. The crumbs need to be fine, but not too fine. If you have little pieces of biscuit, it's okay. So now we need to switch the oven on at 160 degrees, and then we can finish preparing the base. I have just put 80 grams of butter in a pan, and now I am going to switch the cooker on to melt the butter. So the butter is melting. The butter has just melted, so now we can add the biscuits. So now we need to put the biscuits in the tin. And press them down with a spoon. And now we can put the base in the oven for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we can take the base out of the oven and put it on the cooling tray. To make the topping, we need 3 eggs, 500 grams of cream cheese. Today I'm using Philadelphia, but in France we have Saint-Maurice, which you can use, and 125 grams of sugar. Eggs have 2 parts. The yellow part is called the yolk. The transparent part is called the white. First, we need to separate the egg yolks from the egg whites. If you have a little shell in the egg white, it's not a problem. You can take it out with a spoon. Next, we need to whisk the egg whites with an electric mixer. You go faster and faster! When you take the whisk out, it should make peaks, like mountain peaks. I have just weighed my 125 grams of sugar and my 500 grams of cream cheese. So next, we can put everything in the bowl and mix them together, whisk them together with the electric mixer. Perhaps I should have put the cream cheese in little by little. It's very pretty. Next, we are going to need a spatula. So I am going to get the spatula out of the drawer. So we can mix the egg whites slowly into the cream. So now we have our cream. I can go and get the oven gloves out of the drawer and get the cheesecake base. So we can pour the cream on the base. We can use the spatula to get all the cream out of the bowl. And now we can put the cheesecake in the oven for 30 minutes. Don't overcook the cheesecake. You can test it with a toothpick. It should still be a little runny, a little wet. Now we need to leave the cheesecake to cool down on the cooling tray. I think cheesecake is better if you put it in the fridge overnight. Now the cheesecake is cold, it's not warm, I can put it in the fridge. So I hope you enjoyed making your cheesecake. If you
See you next week.